The 4th year of marrying my sworn enemy. He lost his memory in a car accident, and his memories stopped at the time before we got married. Seeing my wedding ring, he spoke with a mocking tone. Who was so unlucky to marry you? I glanced at the bandage on his head and thought to myself, bro, if I said it was you, I'd be afraid you'd have a brain hemorrhage. Never mind, it wasn't you anyway. When did you get married? 4 years ago. What did I do back then? I smiled sweetly and said, you gave me a big red envelope. He lowered his eyes, that's impossible. For some reason, his handsome brows seemed a bit melancholy. Sure enough, even with amnesia, he's still hard to fool. Given our relationship, he definitely wouldn't have given me a big red envelope. He would have thought of putting laxatives in everyone's food to make my wedding the biggest joke in history. Seeing him staring blankly, I acted before I thought. I reached out and pinched his face. Let's go home. Home? His eyes lit up, as if he had seen a glimmer of hope. I quickly came up with an excuse. Yeah, the Alexander family went bankrupt, you know? You're now my attendant. Alexander, who had been on the verge of breaking down, finally cracked completely. I played the part perfectly, having already informed the attendants at home in advance. I also made arrangements with his parents to let him stay home for a while to recover, so we could deceive him. So he wouldn't worry about the company. So when he was in the car, clinging to the last shred of hope, he called his parents to confirm. The answer he got was, son, our family really went bankrupt. He put down the phone, his eyes reddening. The young master of prodigy had become a penniless young man overnight. After a moment, he finally spoke softly. So, what do I do at your place? A lot of things, washing clothes, cooking, serving tea, and oh, I even have to wash your feet. He turned his head away, looking out the window. His stern profile, in such a downtrodden state, added a touch of heartbreak. Anyone who saw him can't help but sigh, how heartbreakingly sweet. I was laughing so hard inside, but I had to hold it in. You see, the Alexander I knew was the domineering, arrogant ice prince. His life was all about being a prodigy, the chosen one. He was always in the spotlight. I once declared that the only time I'd see Alexander shed a tear would be at my funeral. That should be at my funeral. When Alexander heard this, he smiled and said, you're thinking too much. At your funeral, I'll just come to set off fireworks for you. Seeing him so vulnerable now is absolutely satisfying. I held back my laughter all the way home. When I got home, I went straight to the study to handle the accumulated paperwork. When I returned to my room, I suddenly saw Alexander standing there. There was a basin of foot-washing water in front of him. He was standing there, lost in thought. I looked at what he was holding and thought, oh no. It was his pajamas. To say he was sentimental would be an understatement. He had been wearing the same pajamas since college, even after getting married. He turned to look at me, his eyes momentarily confused. Aren't you married? Why are my things in your room? I smiled, pulled his collar, and leaned in close. His ears turned red, and he looked away awkwardly. What are you doing? My fingertips traced circles on his broad chest. After I got married, hubby has been abroad. You know, late at night when I'm lonely, I need someone to help me with my physical needs. He froze upon hearing this. So, am I your paramour? Or maybe, toy, is more accurate. I opened my mouth but couldn't speak. Looking up, I saw his eyes lowered, the corners tinged with sadness. His voice grew faint. Toy, is fine. I felt he looked so lonely and pitiful at that moment, wondering if I had gone too far. Alexander is such a proud man. After waking up, I was back to being an attendant, with a side job as a lover. Would this be too much of a blow? But the next moment, I was roughly pulled into his arms. With a fierce and unwavering intent, he kissed my lips. He conquered me without mercy. Even though he had lost his memory, his skills in this area hadn't diminished at all. He stayed in the hospital for half a month, and I went without sex for half a month. Being kissed by him at that moment was like lightning striking the earth, and I found myself entangled in the bed. He was more intense than usual, leaving me begging for mercy. Under the moonlight, his eyes were filled with overwhelming desire and a hunger to devour me. He bit my earlobe, his voice tinged with cruelty. Do you like it? I like it, but please be gentler. Who's better than your hubby? Speak. Ah, He bit my neck, his movements urgent and fierce, urging me on. I was dazed and thought, it's not that I don't want to say it, I just don't know how to say it, bro. Why him and not me? Before falling asleep, I felt someone holding me tightly. Turning around and burrowing into his embrace had become a kind of instinct for me. I rubbed his chin and whispered, hubby. The body I was holding slowly stiffened. The next morning, I reached out instinctively to touch the person beside me. But all I felt was coldness. I snapped awake and jumped out of bed. When I saw the figure bustling around the dining table downstairs, I finally calmed down. Habits are indeed a terrifying thing. When I sat down at the table, Alexander and the other attendants were standing to the side. I reached out and pulled him, let's eat. Aren't you hungry after working all night? Teasing him came naturally to me. He sat down with a slightly awkward expression. Halfway through his meal, he suddenly asked me with a hint of hesitation. Your hubby. Is it Samuel? I almost spit out my milk. But I managed to hold it back. Seeing him so dejected and out of sorts, it seemed that Samuel had indeed left a deep impression on him. To be honest, Samuel was my first love. When I was in college, Samuel was the senior in charge of welcoming new students. Unlike Alexander, who had always been compared to me by our elders, Samuel was the one who was held up as an example for me to follow. We had a huge argument when we were kids over who got to play the emperor in a make-believe game, and that's how our rivalry began. Coincidentally, our life paths were almost identical, and we were always in each other's way. We had to compete with each other in everything. I learned to play the piano, and his family bought a Steinway. I took up oil painting, and he started drawing. I said I wanted to go to Stanford, and he said he could get into Harvard. In the end, he entered the same university as me with a college entrance exam score 30 points higher than mine. I said he was a persistent ghost. He said we were enemies destined to meet. In the university campus, we went our separate ways. I was soon swallowed up by the surging crowd. When I looked back aimlessly, Alexander's height and appearance made him stand out in the crowd, exceptionally striking. I opened my mouth to call him, but a girl blushed and rushed over, shyly and nervously asking him for his WeChat. He lowered his eyes, the sunlight just right, golden light filling his pupils. The words froze on my lips, and I turned away, unsure if he had given her his WeChat that day. And that was when I met Samuel. He smiled gently at me and asked, Junior, what major are you in? What class? He was completely different from Alexander. I confessed my feelings to him after a club outing. We went to an amusement park, and I said, Senior, let's go archery. That day, they were giving away small plush toys for archery. I said, you definitely won't win as many as me. As night fell, people seemed more gentle and forgiving. The night breeze ruffled his hair, and he smiled softly, you'll definitely win in the end. Because I'll give you all my plush toys. I was speechless. Someone was willing to admit defeat so easily just because I wanted to win. That night, I confessed my feelings, and he nodded. Samuel was a great boyfriend. He would buy me breakfast and bring me a bouquet of my favorite flowers every time we went out. Even when his studies were particularly busy and he had to spend all day in the lab, he would always find time to prepare a surprise for me. If it weren't for what happened later, perhaps Alexander and I wouldn't have ended up together. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but glance at his profile. My expression seemed to imply agreement. Alexander didn't wait for my denial and murmured softly after a moment, I understand. Having grown accustomed to his confident and rebellious demeanor. Seeing him in this submissive, wifey-like state made me feel a little soft-hearted. Actually. I know. I'm just a mistress. I have no right to meddle in such matters. He stubbornly turned his head away, gazing up at the sky with a melancholy expression. True to his nature, Alexander's adaptability was top-notch. Just a week after mentioning Samuel, he actually returned from abroad. He led a team to join my company. When I saw him at the office, he had completely shed his youthful innocence from university days. He had become much more mature and elegant. He took a sip of coffee, his voice still gentle. Evelyn, I've always felt that I owe you an apology. Back then, I was young and didn't understand Samuel's choice. When he was leaving the country, I told him I would go with him. He rarely spoke to me so seriously at the time and said, Evelyn, I don't want your life to change because of me. Why can't I go with you, but Julia can. You two are always together doing experiments, and now you're even going abroad together. Have you fallen for her? He said, because that's the path she chose for herself. But you're different, Evelyn. This wasn't part of your life plan. Don't make such a decision for me. I can't bear it. The young me was stubborn and resolute. Let me go with you, or break up with me. The rest of the story is that we went our separate ways. He followed the girl who shared his aspirations to the other side of the ocean. I once hated Samuel, thinking he had changed his heart and left me. But later, I realized that it's hard for anyone to carry another person's life on their shoulders. Samuel's choice wasn't wrong. I smiled and shook my head. It's not your fault. I was just young and naive back then. He looked at me, his eyes sparkling. How have you been all these years? I nodded. His gaze fell on my wedding ring. I mean, are you happy? I thought of someone at home, clinging to me and begging to go out with me, only to be rejected. Like a wifey, I curled back into bed, my voice tinged with sadness. Well, I'm just a secret lover. I smiled slightly. I'm very happy. A hint of disappointment flashed across Samuel's brow. After a moment of silence, he spoke again. Actually, I knew about your decision to marry someone else 2 months after we broke up. I considered coming back to find you, but it was already too late. I always felt it was my fault that you made such a hasty decision. Maybe. He looked up at me, his clear eyes filled with a mix of testing and determination. Everything can be set right. His words made me panic, and I spilled my coffee, the hot liquid startling me. My hand turned red and swollen. Samuel suddenly stood up and grabbed my hand. Clang! The sound of something hitting the ground came from the doorway. Through the open door, I saw a strikingly handsome face. Oh no, it was my forgetful, unlucky hubby. Looking from his perspective, it was Samuel holding my hand, and we were gazing at each other romantically, sharing our deepest feelings. His eyes were red, and his beautiful lips were pressed into a straight line. He looked like he was about to cry, so pitiful. From his perspective, it was like a male paramour who had climbed the social ladder using his good looks had stumbled upon the legitimate wife returning home, forcing him to swallow his pride and leave. He spoke in a hoarse voice, "Excuse me." He turned and walked away. "Hey, Alexander." I quickly pulled my hand back and stood up to chase after him. He was tall and had long legs, so I had to run a few steps before catching him at the elevator entrance. The employees pretended to work, but their eyes and ears were all on our side, eavesdropping on the gossip. I chased him all the way, and by now, my anger was starting to rise. I grabbed his wrist and turned him toward me. I said. The rest of the words stuck in my throat. His reddened eyes and dejected expression suddenly struck my heart. The little bit of anger I had vanished instantly, and I instinctively reached out to cup his face. Oh my, what's wrong? Are you upset? He pushed my hand away. Your hubby is back. I have to go. Don't go. Let me explain. I thought maybe I should just admit it. You're the one who's my hubby. Though I do find this helpless, vulnerable side of him quite endearing. But seeing him so upset, I feel a pang of guilt. Actually, you're the one who. Starry, it's been a while. Samuel catches up just then. Samuel extends his hand, and Alexander glances at it. The earlier look of hurt vanishes. He regains his cold, arrogant demeanor. Dignity, even as a paramour, one must maintain it. He shook Samuel's hand. Long time no see, senior. On the surface, everything seemed fine. But the hand Alexander held with Samuel's was clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. Samuel was a bit puzzled. After all, they'd broken up 4 years ago. There was no need for this, was there? But he still extended an invitation. Let's have dinner together. So the three of us ended up sitting awkwardly at the same table. Speaking of which, ever since I started dating Samuel in college, Alexander rarely appeared in my field of vision. Once, when I went home, I ran into him. He was leaning against a car, smoking. The smoke swirled around him as he looked at me. As far as I remembered, he never smoked. I couldn't help but furrow my brows. He paused for a moment, then crushed the cigarette butt in his hand. He asked me, "Do you really like him?" "What else? Do you think I like you?" "What makes him better than me?" "Everything." The moonlight cast a lonely glow on his eyebrows and eyes. He gave a faint, and turned to get into the car, driving away. After that, we rarely saw each other. Two people who used to think they were destined to cross paths. Turned out, when someone doesn't make an effort to meet, they really don't meet. To be a good host, I let Samuel order first. After he mentioned a few dishes, Alexander's expression grew even colder. Don't you know she doesn't like spicy food anymore? Samuel's hand holding the menu paused. Then he said, sorry, I wasn't aware. So you don't care about her at all? Even Samuel, who was usually smooth with words, was momentarily speechless. Samuel thought to himself, wait, I'm her ex-boyfriend. You're her husband. Why should I care about her? Alexander, seeing Samuel's stunned expression, grew even angrier. It was as if he were saying, how could someone who doesn't care about me marry me instead of marrying him? So you've been abroad all these years? Samuel nodded. Yes, I was leading a team overseas. Now that everything is settled, I've returned to the country. In your heart, is work more important, or is she more important? This. Do you even know how she's been living all these years? At this point, I was also a bit surprised. Wait, how have I been living all these years? But then I thought about it from Alexander's perspective. In his eyes, I'm a husband who's been away for years, showing no concern for her, forcing her to stay home alone and seek comfort from a lover. That does sound a bit pitiful. Samuel was also confused. I don't really know. I'm sorry. Something felt off about this. I quickly served him some food, trying to distract him with food. He watched my actions toward him, his expression complex as he pondered for a moment. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared in his eyes. It startled me. What was he going to do now? Then he spoke, so you're destined to lose her. Compared to you, she cares more about me now. I finally understood what that flash of light meant. It was Paramore's confidence in challenging the original partner. Samuel was completely confused, with a head full of questions. But Alexander had already made up his mind to have Paramore take the lead. He kept pouring water for me, serving me food, and even actively using a napkin to wipe my mouth. Samuel watched us, the couple, openly showing our affection. But I felt that he must think Alexander was pretty crazy at that moment. As we were about to part ways, Alexander went to get the car, and Samuel said to me, I was worried that you weren't truly happy now, and that you only married him because you were impulsive after the breakup. But now it seems like you're doing well. I smiled. He's been sick lately and acting a bit odd. But we're really doing well. Samuel curved his lips. Evelyn, to be honest, this time when I came back, I've been torn, afraid you weren't happy, yet afraid you were too happy. But seeing it with my own eyes, I realized that if you're happy, I'll be even happier for you. I pretended not to notice the sadness in his words and waved goodbye with a smile. As you wished, I really didn't change the course of my life because of you. We both have better lives now. On the way home, he saw Samuel wasn't with us and sighed in relief. But the next moment, he grew annoyed. He came back to the country and didn't even come home to be with you? I nodded. He furrowed his brows. What's the point of having such a husband? There was something I wasn't sure if I should say. But as soon as we got home, he threw me onto the bed, and a storm of kisses followed. His words were slurred, but they were filled with frustration. What do you like about him? Why don't you divorce him? I actually thought about that question. I answered him, because he doesn't compete with me, unlike that annoying guy. His movements paused. His beautiful eyes flickered with sadness for a moment. Then I won't compete with you either. Is that okay? In the past 20 years, I never dared to imagine Alexander would say such words to me with such an expression. My current shock could be described as jaw-dropping. Amnesia is such a wonderful thing. After saying that, he looked at me shyly, leaned down, and kissed my ear. He took my hand and ran it over his body. Am I not as good-looking as him? Or am I not as handsome as him? Or am I? His hand guided mine to his lower body, and my face flushed red as my legs involuntarily wrapped around his waist. Male competition can be so simple and direct sometimes. A few days later, I took him back to the hospital for a follow-up checkup. The doctor examined him and said, the blood clot in his brain is almost gone. In a few more days, once the clot dissolves, the amnesia symptoms should disappear. Hearing this, a faint sadness welled up in my heart. The soft, easy-to-bully Alexander was going to disappear. I felt so reluctant. He noticed my gaze and turned to look at me. Why the sad face? Is my condition that bad? I shook my head. It's fine. It's just that you won't be my lover for much longer. You'll soon be my husband again. I threw myself into Alexander's arms, unaware that the expression on his face had changed. Alexander thought, her husband is back. She really doesn't want me anymore. I felt the arms holding me tighten. Like holding on to the last ember of a fire that must not be lost. A few days later, a press conference was held for the new collaboration project. Samuel, as the head of the technical team from the collaborating company, was also present. The media had already arrived, and when I took the stage for the interview, it was broadcast live. I answered all the media's questions appropriately. To generate buzz for the new project, the media also asked about our relationship. Ms. Evelyn and your husband are also well known as a loving couple in the business world. Did you discuss the decision to collaborate on this project with your husband? The title of loving couple felt a bit ridiculous. That was the second year after I married Alexander. We were attending a banquet that evening, and it was raining. The car was parked in the courtyard, and there was a 50-meter walk to the entrance. Alexander picked me up and held me in his arms. I wrapped one arm around his neck and held an umbrella with the other, snuggling against him. Someone took a photo of us and posted it online. With a Faded Love soundtrack, we went viral online, and later people uncovered our true identities. Netizens were obsessed, saying that love really exists in wealthy families. But the story behind that photo was actually this. Carry me inside. Did you break your legs? Do you want me to carry you? My shoes can't get wet. Will you carry me? If not, I'll ask Mr. Liu to carry me. Mr. Liu was our bodyguard. He snorted, got out of the car first, and carried me into the rain, while I instinctively held an umbrella for him. Thinking of Alexander, I curved my lips slightly. My husband did help me plan this. Actually, whether it's in life or career, he's given me a lot of advice and help. I'm very grateful to him. And I also love him. It was almost an involuntary statement. After saying it, I couldn't help but feel a pang of regret welling up inside me. I wondered how Alexander would tease me once he regained his memory. I sighed slightly and managed to endure until the live stream ended. As soon as I picked up my phone, I saw that the home phone had been ringing non-stop. My heart skipped a beat. Mrs. Liu rarely called me this many times. The assistant who came over looked equally anxious. Ms. Evelyn, Mr. Chen is missing. Missing? I immediately called him, but his phone was turned off. Mrs. Liu said they had searched the area around the house but found no one. I decided to rush back home right away. The assistant stopped me. Ms. Evelyn, there's still a dinner with the partner company later. Cancel it for me. But I didn't have time to hear her finish before rushing home in a hurry. Mrs. Liu rushed over and said, Mr. Chen didn't know what came over him. He watched the live stream on TV and stared blankly for a while. Then he went out and hasn't come back yet. I furrowed my brows and quickly tried to think of where he might have gone. He probably didn't go to his parents' place, otherwise they would have called me. There was no sign of his brother either. Where else could he be? I paced around the house anxiously for a while before suddenly having an epiphany. A secret hideout. When I rushed over, he was indeed there. He was sitting alone on the swing, looking very lonely. I unconsciously slowed my steps as I approached him, knelt down, and looked up at him. I reached out to hold his hand, but he pulled away. Why did you come out alone? You didn't divorce him because you truly love him, right? You don't like me at all, you just see me as a tool, right? He lowered his eyes, and the sorrow in them was almost tangible. Something vague in my heart became clear. His memories were frozen at the age of 21. So, buying the Steinway piano was to get me to play at his house, right? Learning to paint like me was to go out sketching together, right? Scoring 30 points higher on the college entrance exam and coming to Stanford was because you wanted to attend the same university as me, right? I gripped his fingers tightly. You like me, don't you? Tears welled up in his eyes, and his eyelids turned slightly red. I can't love you anymore, Evelyn. You never loved me at all. His voice was choked with sobs. My heart ached sharply, and I stood up, burying his face in my waist. His arms wrapped around my waist, refusing to let go. Warm tears soaked my clothes. He said, "What should I do? How can I stop feeling so sad?" My hand gently stroked his hair. But his tears made my heart ache. Sure enough, a man's tears are a woman's aphrodisiac. I whispered to him, "Let's go home. Come home with me, okay? Darling." He looked up at me, his eyes still red from crying. His voice was hoarse, even more sensual. "That's not my home." I lowered my head and kissed his lips, gently rubbing his earlobe with my fingertips. "Then let's get in the car." "That's fine too." So I seduced him into the car and took him home. I felt someone carry me home in a daze. This time, it wasn't me who initiated it. The next day, the sun was shining brightly. I stretched lazily and woke up feeling refreshed. The person in my arms was warm and smelled good. I rubbed against his chest and said before opening my eyes, "Good morning." "Good morning." His tone was steady and decisive. Something felt off about his tone. I suddenly opened my eyes. Alexander was propping his head up with one hand, leaning against the headboard, and slowly twirling the ends of my hair between his fingers. When our eyes met, he curved his eyes, his autumn water-like pupils sending a chill down my spine. This feeling, I'm doomed. I immediately tried to get up and run, but was held down by someone. "Why are you running so fast? Are you afraid hubby will suddenly come back? See me, your paramour?" He emphasized the word paramour heavily, and I gave a nervous laugh. "Hubby, have you regained your memory? I've missed you so much." "Stop being so silly. You know exactly what you did." As he spoke, his nose had already lowered to nudge the waistband of my pajamas. I checked my body. A certain place felt a bit sore. Another round probably wouldn't work. I quickly pushed away his furry head. "What did I do? I stayed by your side day and night while you were sick. But certain people, it turns out you've been head over heels for me since way back then." When I mentioned this, he paused uncomfortably. "You're so full of yourself." Sure enough, the soft and cute Alexander from before was gone. I leaned back against his chest and we talked together at the bedside. At that moment, I suddenly realized that I actually missed him, the way he was now. "Why didn't you confess your feelings to me back then?" He replied with a hint of bitterness. "Weren't you in love with your senior at the time?" "Hey, don't be jealous of him. If it weren't for him, we might not have gotten married so quickly." "What do you mean?" "Actually, after we broke up, I went through a pretty painful period. I was drunk out of my mind, collapsed on the stairs. Suddenly, a face appeared in my vision, blocking the stars in my eyes. Alexander reached out and touched my forehead. "Are you sick?" I was unusually calm and pushed his hand away. "Alexander, my love is dead. Do you understand?" He crouched down beside my head. "It's just love. What's the big deal?" He said it so casually. When I woke up the next morning, I was lying in my own bed. My mom came in and asked, "What happened last night? You were so drunk. Al said you were chasing after him and biting his heels when he brought you home." That's a lie, pure and simple. But in my mind, I could see Alexander's eyes, filled with mockery and derision. In the darkness, he had said with a faint smile, "It's just love that's dead, isn't it?" He said it so casually. Well, let your love die too. I grabbed my mom's hand and said, "Actually, I like Alexander. Go talk to the Alexander family about an arranged marriage. The Alexander family's parents really like me. They'd probably be more than willing." This would really give Alexander a taste of his own medicine. He'd be crying and throwing a fit at home, right? Who would that make happy? I won't say. I smiled sweetly at home, waiting for the good news of Alexander's breakdown. The next day, the Alexander family responded. They agreed. When should the wedding be held? The macaron in my hand dropped to the ground. I messed up. I really messed up. What should I do? I had my mom propose the marriage alliance, and now I'm backing out. Alexander will laugh at me like I'm a piece of trash. When we exchanged rings, I snapped back to reality. I asked him, "Why didn't you refuse?" His expression flickered unnaturally for a moment. "Aren't you trying to disgust me?" He twisted his lips maliciously and whispered in my ear, "Let's see who's disgusting now. If you cry and throw a fit and want a divorce later, I won't agree." It coincided with the background sound of the priest's vows. For better or worse, in sickness and in health, We will love each other until death do us part. I poked his waist and asked, so should we thank Samuel? He grunted, it's a stretch, but I guess so. He stood up to get dressed, and I watched his back, broad shoulders and a broad back, with sunlight streaming in through the window and bathing him in light. His skin was even more smooth and delicate, like cream. The golden light turned his jet black hair into a golden hue. I couldn't help but rush over and wrap my arms around his waist. A question suddenly popped into my head. Hey, remember that girl who asked for your WeChat when we first started freshman year? Did you give it to her? He smiled slyly, like a fox. I'm not telling you. At that moment, he pointed at my silhouette in the crowd. Did you see her? That's the girl I like.